In this lesson, we're going to continue to work on solving inequalities with absolute values, but we're going to move on to greater than. Before we do that, let's review. When you have the absolute value of some expression in terms of x is less than a number, then your solution looks like negative a is less than x, which is less than a. You get the between notation. And on a number line, it is literally between those. All right, in this lesson, we're going to now look at the absolute value of x greater than a. This is very different. The absolute value is greater than a. That means that x is going to be less than negative a, or x is going to be greater than positive a. Instead of the between notation, we're going to be looking at what I call the extreme notation. So it will look like any number out there has an absolute value that'll be bigger than a. Any number here, this direction, has an absolute value that is greater than a. So we will be looking at, in intervals, this is negative infinity, this is positive infinity. So this has two intervals. It is negative infinity to negative a, union with a to positive infinity. I have parentheses around the a's because I use the less than symbol. If I had less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, then these would become brackets. So when its absolute value is less than a, you get the between. When the absolute value of x is greater than a, you get the extremes. All right, so let's take a look now. All right, make this just a little bit bigger. All right, we have the absolute value of x greater than 7. Because it has a greater than, we take the x, it is less than the negative, or it is greater than the positive. And maybe you should actually say that to yourself. Less than the negative, greater than the positive. It's the extremes. On a number line, that would be less than negative 7, greater than positive 7. And the symbols in this case will be parentheses because we just have the inequality symbols without equal. In an interval, this is negative infinity to 7, union with 7 to infinity. You get the symbol infinity and negative infinity from your toolbar. So the first answer will be negative infinity to negative 7, the union symbol, 7 to infinity. So that choice, and whoops, it is the extremes, so it is this one, because it does have the parentheses. Okay, let's look at another one. We have absolute value x plus 10 greater than or equal to 14. That means x plus 10 is less than or equal to the negative, or x plus 10 greater than or equal to the positive. Less than the negative, greater than the positive. If we solve this one, subtract 10, and I have, I'm going to write it down here, x is less than or equal to negative 24, or subtract 7, x is greater than or equal to 7. All right, number line, we have negative 24. We have positive 7, so it's this way and this way. So if we look at our number lines, I must have a wrong, I have a wrong number. I miscopied right here. Sorry. So that's x plus 10 is greater than or equal to 14. Subtract 10, subtract 10, and that's a 4. And that's a 4. All right, so I look around and I see that's my choice. What will it be in interval notation? This is negative infinity to negative 24. Parentheses always around the infinities. Bracket around that, union. Bracket around the 4 to infinity. Infinities always get parentheses. And that will be my answer for right here. I like to look at the graph before I write the interval. All right, number 3, I have the absolute value of x plus a 4 is greater than 9. I need to isolate the absolute value. So I have the absolute value of x is greater than 5. That means x is less than negative 5 or x is greater than positive 5. In a graph, less than negative 5 greater than positive 5, it's going to be this one, and it is parentheses because there's no equal, and this will be from negative infinity to negative 5, parentheses always, parentheses in this case, union 5 to infinity, parentheses. This is what I will write for my solution. Last one. Let's see, I think I'll copy it down here. Absolute value, x plus 1 plus a 4 is greater than or equal to 9. Subtract the 4 because you have to have the absolute value isolated. Absolute value, x plus 1 is greater than or equal to 5. Now I look at my two cases. That means x plus 1 is less than or equal to the negative, or x plus 1 greater than or equal to the positive. Solve each of those. Subtract 1. X is less than or equal to negative 6, or subtract 1, subtract 1. X is greater than or equal to 4. So it's less than or equal to 6 or greater than or equal to 4. Less than or equal to 6, greater than or equal to 4. It will be this one, brackets because of the equal. And as an interval, that will be negative infinity to negative 6, and that's bracket, union with 4 to infinity, once again bracket. So you can go back and review your intervals if you need to. You can look in your ebook and go back to chapter 2 at the very end of chapter 2, and you will find a discussion about intervals if you need a little bit more. Okay, so before we completely leave, remember absolute value x equals a. That means that x equals a, x equals negative a. Okay, if we have, that's the equal. If we have x, absolute value x is less than a, the less than is the between. Negative a is less than x is less than a. If we have the absolute value of x is greater than a, we have the extremes. X is less than the negative, or x is greater than the positive. So if I were you, I would write those down. as you're getting ready for your exam so that you can getting ready for this unit test. This is how you solve the equation. The less than is the between, the greater than is the extremes.